Hi, my name is Kristen Stevens. I'm a Nutrena sales consultant, and today I'm going to go over a couple of techniques that you can use to evaluate your horse's overall nutrition and diet. Before we get started today, I do want to talk about a couple of safety tips when working around horses. Even the quietest horses can be startled by abrupt movements, so make sure that all of your movements are nice and fluid. You don't approach them quickly and from behind, as that can startle them. When you move around your horse, try to keep a hand on them and not stand directly behind them. If you have a handler holding your horse, make sure that they are on the same side of the horse as you at all times as well. So our first method that we're going to go over today is body condition scoring. Body condition scoring is used to evaluate the horse's overall calorie intake. So what we're looking for is an excess or a lack of fat in certain areas of the horse's body. The way that we will evaluate this is looking at 4 different sections of this horse. The scale that the body condition scoring scale follows is a 1 through 9 scale. So 1 would be your underweight, emaciated, very thin horse, and a 9 is your overweight or obese horse. So as we evaluate this horse, we're going to look at those 4 areas and give each area a score of 1 through 9, and then we will get the average of those 4 areas to get that horse's overall body condition score. So the first area we're going to look at is the crest of the horse's neck. So we're looking right here in the center part of his neck, and a good technique for doing this is to take your 2 fingers and run them down the length of that horse's neck. So put one on either side, run it down the entire length of their neck. And what we're looking for here is that horse's neck is relatively similar in width the entire length down. If it gets significantly wider here in the center, or it raises up some, that is excess fat that's being deposited in the horse's crest, and that is going to make them a higher number with that on that 1 through 9 scale. Ideally, you kind of want to start at that 5 and add or subtract points based on how that body condition feels. If that horse is underweight or lacking fat, you're going to feel it's very thin. It's going to be very thin across the top of their neck, and they're going to be hollow down throughout their neck. The second area that we're going to look at is right here in this heart girth area of the horse. So as you run your hand down here right behind their shoulder, what you are feeling for is an extra kind of fat pad area. A lot of times it's kind of right in this zone, and you'll be able to feel that fat will be soft and spongy and squishy. A horse that is of ideal body condition will be nice and smooth and will run right down into that girth, and you won't feel any of that excess fat in that area. Horses that are underweight are going to be kind of hollow, and you may have that shoulder may protrude out a little bit, and they're kind of sunken in this area. So those are kind of the two opposite types of horses that you're looking for as far as body condition in that area. Your third area is going to be over the ribs. So over the ribs is probably the easiest way to look at a horse and estimate their body condition. What we are looking for in this area is that we want to not visually be able to see their ribs, but when we run our hand across their ribs, we want to be able to feel them fairly easily. If you have to push real hard to feel those ribs, that horse has some excess fat there, and kind of depending on how hard you're having to push, and if you can even feel those ribs, that would be those numbers up from a 5. On the contrary, if you can see that horse's ribs visually, he is automatically going to be below that 5 body condition score, and if they are protruding or very prominent, that number will go down in that area. The last area that we evaluate for body condition score is going to be around the tail head area. So when we're looking at this, we are looking specifically at this area just as that kind of croup runs into this horse's tail head. Ideally, for that 5 body condition score, you want that to run nice and smooth into the tail head. You don't want any excess fat, spongy pockets around there, but you also don't want that tail head to be protruding and standing up and being kind of hollow on either side. Horses that have excess fat in this area, sometimes you will actually see almost a horseshoe-shaped fat pad or bulge around the top of their tail, and that's a key way to see that they are putting some fat in that area. So once you have evaluated your horse in those 4 areas, you would add those 4 numbers together. So if this horse was a 5, a 5.5, a 5, and a 5.5, you would add those 4 up, divide them by 4, and that's going to give your average. So on that example, this horse would be about a 5.25. So that kind of gives you that average so that you're not having to evaluate the whole horse as one, but you're able to kind of break them down and look at each area individually to know whether you need to add calories or take calories away or leave their diet alone as far as calories go. The second evaluation method that we're going to go over today is top-line evaluation. The reason we look at top line and body condition separate is that the top line of the horse from their withers back to their croup is comprised primarily of muscle. Horses would tend to be on the heavier side, more overweight, up in those like 7 or 8 body condition scores before they start to put fat over their top line. So what we're looking for is that they have adequate muscling up here to support that saddle and support the movements that you're asking them to do. This evaluation is evaluating the nutrition in their diet. So we're looking primarily at proteins and amino acids, but also that overall balanced nutrition that they're getting every day in the feed that you're giving them. So the method in which we are going to evaluate this horse's top line is we're going to separate that horse's back into 3 sections. So we are looking at this croup area, and then we're going to go from their loin to their mid-back, and then from the mid-back forward to their withers. A good technique for feeling this, you really want that muscle to come up and support that spine on either side. So I like to run my hand, the palm of my hand, along that horse's back. And what I'm feeling for is that that muscle is up supporting that spine, and I don't want to be feeling that spinal process on the palm of my hand when I do that. At whatever point I start to feel that horse's spine, that is where I start to not give them that point. So basically they're going to get a yes or a no for each area. If this area feels nice and supported, the muscle is up around that spine, I'm not feeling that spinal process, I will give them a check mark or a yes for this section. And the same goes as we move forward. If this feels nice and supported, he will again get a check mark there. As we move forward, we will also be feeling for that spine, but we also want to lay our hand next to their withers. And on either side of those withers, we really want that hand to lay nice and flat or come out just a little bit to show that that muscling is adequate on either side of their withers. If your hand is concave and it falls down into that area next to their withers, that shows that they have a little bit of room for improvement and can put on some extra muscle in that area. So the scoring method for that, if they have no check marks, no yeses, that horse is going to automatically be a D top line. If they get 1 check mark, that would be a C. If they get 2, that's going to be a B. And if they get a check mark for all 3 areas and you feel like that muscling is adequate all the way up their top line, that horse is going to be considered an A top line. So when you evaluate your horse this way, we are taking into account, again, the calorie intake when we're doing body condition scoring and the muscling, which is what is going to reflect their overall nutrition and the nutrients that are going into their diet.